last week, we started this process. We went through a burning bowl ceremony where we let go of everything that was related to 2025 that we wanted to let go of, and even more things. So it wasn't limited to just 2025. It could be really anything that was no longer serving you. And so we went through that process. So in other words, what happens is when we let go of it energetically, what we're doing is we are creating space. Because in order for the new to come in, there's got to be somewhere for it to go. And if you're full, there's nowhere for that new energy to go. So we created space. And for those that were here, how did that feel to you? How did that feel? Pretty amazing. I thought it was really powerful. Even for me, when I'm up here doing this stuff, I still am very touched and moved by it because I'm still impacted by everything that's going on here. So good. I'm glad that it was working. And today is the second part of it, which is called the White Stone Ceremony. And so what is the White Stone Ceremony? It represents new beginnings. That's what the white stone is. It's a ritual based on a scripture in the book of Revelations that says, "Let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give a white stone, and on the white stone is written a new name that no one knows except the one who receives it." So this is where the idea came from of the White Stone Ceremony. And that line alone has been wrestled with, and here's why. In the ancient world, way back when, it had several meanings. In courts, what happened is a white stone meant acquittal, or innocence, or freedom. So it was a custom in the ancient times that during slavery in the Holy Land, a prisoner was given a white stone when he was freed from servitude as a token of his freedom. So that's what they did. They gave him a white stone, and on his stone was a new name that the person actually took as he went into his new life. So that's a tradition, that's a history of it, that's where it came from. In athletics, it was sometimes used as a token of victory. In social life, a white stone could serve as an invitation to a banquet or a ceremony, or it was also considered to be a sign of belonging, is what white stones were used for as well. So when Scripture speaks about this idea of a white stone, it's pointing to some form of a release of a judgment. Oh, we're no longer going to be judging this person for whatever it is that they did. Or a recognition of worth. You are valued again, right? Or an entry into something new. So it had lots of different meanings. It just depended on the situation. And then there's a phrase that matters the most, which is where they talked about this idea of having a new name, right? So in the Bible, you think about it, there's been a handful of times where people's names literally changed. So as you go back and reference it, that the person doesn't just think differently, but they actually act differently. They relate differently. They become an entirely different person. So back in the Old Testament, when Abram became Abraham, so he moves from being a private land collector, is what he was, and then all of a sudden, he goes from doing that to more of a generational figure, if you will. Abraham becomes like this massive part in the Old Testament. And Jacob goes from changing from Jacob to Israel. Jacob is a schemer. He's a manipulator. He's living by cleverness and control. He's, I'm going to manipulate everything, right? And after wrestling with God, yes, in the Bible, he actually wrestles with God. He becomes Israel. So his name changes. And so he moves from the scheming and the manipulation and everything that he was doing to just the opposite of that. And he decides to live in full integrity, full authenticity, and shows up fully to serve God. In the New Testament, Simon goes to Peter. So Simon was a fisherman. And when Jesus renames him Peter, meaning the rock, you're the one that I'm going to build my church upon, what happens is he shifts from being this impulsive, reactive, paranoid almost person to somebody who was calm. They were relaxed, and they could step into the leadership role that Jesus needed after he left. And then you've got Saul becoming Paul. Testing you there a little bit to see who would remember these things. Saul actively persecuted the early followers of Jesus. So he was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, right? And after his encounter on the road to Damascus, he actually becomes Paul. And so the shift is from control and violence to absolutely the opposite of service and transformation. So there's several examples of people who actually changed their name in the Bible. I think I got most of them. There might be one or two more in there, but most of them. So biblically speaking, a new name actually signals a move from who you were protecting, how you were surviving, how you were controlling, and it shifts going from there into now who am I serving? Who am I trusting? Who am I going to embody? Or what am I going to embody? And that's the heart of it. So it's a complete transfer of going from this particular part of your reality, this old story of who you were, stepping into this new version of yourself and really opening yourself up to become really what I would say is a part of you that was honestly always there. It was just maybe asleep or dormant, would be the best way to look at it, right? So a new name doesn't necessarily erase the past per se, but it redeems it by pointing the person towards this new way of being, this new way of showing up, this new possibility, if you will. And that's exactly why the white stone matters. So unity teaches us that we're not creating ourselves from scratch. So in other words, we don't start from ground zero, actually. We are the children of the divine. And that's what unity's message has always been, that we're all there. So we already have that going for us. In other words, we were given this. We were born with this. It's just that, unfortunately, we have forgotten that, right? And so we are remembering who we already are in God. That's really what it comes down to. And so Fillmore taught that the names in Scripture represent actually states of consciousness. Oh, so in other words, it's not so much about the name, it's actually more about the state of consciousness. So then the new name, if you think about it, it's not a label. It's not like you're going from Saul to Paul. It's actually you're changing literally consciousness. You're changing the energy and the way that you're deciding to show up. You can do that. I can literally change the way I show up differently than the way I have been showing up. Yeah. So here's the question. Is there any place in your life where maybe, just maybe, you might want to show up a little bit differently, energetically wise, than where you're at right now? Hands, please. Yeah. Hello. So just imagine that all of a sudden I'm going to wave a magic wand and give every single one of you permission to do that. Done. It's done. Oh, wait a minute. So now I get to show up differently? Yes. You mean I don't have to keep? No. You mean I can be? Yes. Yeah. Just stop. Stop doing that to yourself. Nobody is holding that back other than you. Nobody is. Only you are. So then it's like, wow, this could be really, really powerful. And the entire universe is going, it's about frickin' time. She finally got it. Wow, they finally got it. I get it. So therefore, the white stone represents not just the name on the stone, it's a state of being you're choosing to embody. So as we slowly start to get closer to these next few moments where we're going to spend with this, I just want you to really be with that. Like, what do you think is really calling you this year? And by the way, it just doesn't only have to be one thing, but for this morning, I'm going to ask you to consider that. What would be the one thing? What would be the one word? What would be the state of being where you could, in your own heart and soul, go, oh, that just feels so good to me. That's how I want to start showing up a little bit differently. And regardless if it's one part of your life or it's just an overall statement, what would that be for you? This isn't a resolution. This isn't a goal. This isn't a checklist. None of that. It's the way you're choosing to show up in 2026 that you would love to embody, that you would like to do maybe a little bit differently. In unity, we understand consciousness precedes form. Consciousness precedes form. So meaning that you choose to be what it is that you're wanting to be first here, and then what you do, what you allow, and what you create changes. Everything then starts to change. But it starts with your decision on, I might want to do this just a little bit differently. Just a little bit differently, right? So the white stone becomes a focal point for the year ahead. How am I going to be? It becomes your spiritual anchor. Think about it like that. It's a reminder of how you intend to live this year, especially when it would be easier to fall back into the old habit that we always want to do, right? Because let's just face it, it's always easier to be over here than actually have the courage to make a decision to live consciously different over here, because we are going to be pulled back here when you know what hits the fan, right? That's just reality. That's the truth, is that when stuff gets hard and we're just like panicking, the tendency is to go, well, I'm comfortable back here. I'm comfortable because I understand this. And yet, when you make that decision to stand in this new energy, it's going to require you to have just enough faith, just enough trust in yourself and in God and the universe to actually support you in this new space. Even when you don't think you can do it, you still lean on that faith and trust, right? And so this isn't about you becoming somebody else. It's not in any way, shape, or form. It's about giving yourself permission to live from a deeper truth. Huh? Yeah. What if you could live from a deeper truth? What if you could really find something inside of here that's going, man, I've been wanting to do this for 10 years, and I just have never given myself permission, or I've never consciously thought about maybe showing up a little bit differently regarding this particular thing, right? So here's mine from last year. And on the stone, I wrote the word believe. And I took the stone after we made it, and it sat on my altar the entire year. And it was not an easy year for me in several different ways. And I didn't choose that word because it sounded spiritual. I chose that word because I needed it. And what's so profound to me is now looking back at the year and everything that happened, is that how perfect it was that I chose that word. It could not have been a better word for me. Did I know that when I chose that word? No, I didn't. But looking back, it couldn't have been a better word for me. It really couldn't have. Because what I realized is I became aware of how often that I was holding myself back through self-doubt, limiting beliefs, who am I, doubting myself, second-guessing, waiting instead of actually just leading and moving forward. All of those things were part of my journey last year. And so believe for me became a reminder. And when I would sit down at the altar and that would be there, I would be looking at it and going, oh, that's right. That's right. Not just believe in God, although yes, of course, but it's also, how about believe in myself? How about believe in the guidance that's coming from within me? How about trusting that and actually listening to it and actually doing something based off of what's being given to me instead of ignoring it or not listening to it or pretending it's not there or pretending that I'm not who and what I really am? What if I really stepped into that belief? Do you think things might just be a little bit different? And that's what happened to me as I went through the year and everything that happened. What if I learned to trust my voice? What if I learned to trust my calling? What if I stopped negotiating with fear? So I started showing up a little bit different. I started realizing when all of a sudden some things were happening, it's like, hey, dude, you're going back here, man. You're going back here. Could we kind of move it over here a little bit and step into this new space? Remember the word believe? Yeah, you wrote that on a rock, a stone, so it become a foundation of your year. Do you think this might be showing up? Do you think you might have picked that word without knowing how much you were going to need that word? Do you think maybe that God had a hand on this, that your guides and your angels had a handle on this, that they knew what was coming? Do you think maybe that's why you chose that word? That was pretty cool, God. Like, good job. Really, like, nice work, right? But that's what it is, because it kept calling me back, even when I wanted to forget, even when I wanted to forget. And like I said, it wasn't easy. But looking back, I absolutely know without a doubt it was number one, the perfect word for me. Absolutely perfect. And I could not have picked a better one because I kept going back to it over and over and over again. And what happened was there was the strength that started showing up inside of me that I didn't even know that I had. That was really awesome. I'm not saying it was easy, it wasn't. But ultimately, what showed up was something that I didn't even realize I had inside of myself. And so I started to believe in myself more than I've ever believed in myself, my own inner guidance and direction, even when I wasn't sure, even when I felt lost, even when I felt like giving up. That one word just kept me going. And today I realized that the year was really ultimately about that. Me understanding that I had a part of myself that I never even knew I had. And does it mean that I showed up perfectly every single time? No. Does it mean I showed up at time with my knees buckling and shaking because I just wasn't sure? Of course it did. I needed to learn how to walk. I needed to learn how to crawl. I needed to learn I could actually do it. And so I went through this process. But over time, over the course of the year, I kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's how it worked for me, right? So, like me, maybe your word is going to be something that you want to strengthen, or maybe it might be something you want to release, can be, or maybe it could be something that you want to remember. I don't know. I don't know. And trust me when I tell you, everybody is going to be a little bit different. Not everybody's going to be believe. Not everybody's going to use that word. You're going to have your own word, what it means for you. Trust yourself. Maybe it's courage. Maybe fear's been running your life and you're done with it. You're like, I'm done with fear. Maybe faith, because you're tired of trying to hold on to everything and control everything. Maybe it's peace, because you've had everything but that in your life. Maybe it's compassion, because you keep beating yourself up. So maybe this word becomes for you a spiritual practice. And maybe you can use it when you're unsure and you ask yourself, well, how would someone living from this state respond differently than the way I'm showing up now? Oh man, that involves me being honest with myself. That means me asking hard questions. That means me looking at something maybe I don't want to look at. Or maybe when you're triggered, you remember, how about instead of me going back there, I choose to stay right here because this is who and what I am now. That's the kind of power you've got, folks. That's what you can do. And so these are just a few of the 100 examples that you can choose from. You can choose power, you could choose love, you can use joy, you could choose forgiveness, you could choose fun, you can choose abundance. Don't limit yourself. Let it be meaningful for you. Let it be fun. Let it be enjoyable, but something that you really, really, really want to be. Again, this isn't about doing, this is about being. What is it that you want to be in 2026? And know this, that your word doesn't have to make sense to anybody but you. Because after all, it's your word, right? So, just remember that Scripture reminds us, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that renewal doesn't happen all at once. So don't be surprised if you pick a word and you're sitting there looking at it going, meh, and then all of a sudden things start to happen. Because that's, I can pretty much guarantee you, going to happen if you do this seriously and your intention is good and pure, right? So just think about this. So this happens one step at a time. And this white stone is simply remembering. It's simply a mark to remember the choice that that's gonna happen today. So in a minute, we'll be giving a white stone out to everybody. I think we've got enough for everybody. I'm hoping we do. We might have to use some of the smaller stones, but don't panic if you wind up getting a smaller stone. They're still just as effective. Remember, what's the most important thing behind anything that we do? Thank you. It's your intention. It's not necessarily what it physically looks like.